We're going to be joined by Dr. Salim Al-Malik. I will be giving you a short introduction because it's going to be very difficult for me to give a short introduction because, mashallah, he's very well qualified. Dr. Salim is a DG ICESCO, which is Islamic World Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. He has been the Advisor and General Supervisor of International Affairs at the Ministry of Education and the Advisor on Health Affairs to the Minister of Education in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He is also a consultant on allergy and immunology for the National Guard. And he has developed innovative methods and strategies pertaining to healthcare through resource utilization and cost containment. And also, he has been a part-time assistant professor at Al Faisal University, and also very interestingly, he's certified from the Arab and American Board of Pediatrics and American Board of Allergy and Clinical Immunology, and is married and has 5 children. So welcome to PTV World.
Thank you. I'm very honored and very happy to be with you this morning.
Lovely to have you, sir.
Lovely. Likewise, sir. So moving on to our second guest, he is obviously a very big name in Pakistan, especially when it comes to education, because he has done a lot of reforms in terms of the Pakistan's education. And I think that is also the need of the hour to update ourselves, our curriculum with the passing of the time. He happens to be Professor Dr. Mukhtar Ahmed. He happens to be Sitara Imtiaz, and he is also the chairman of Higher Education Commission Pakistan. He has done his master's and PhD from the University of California, Riverside. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. So we will start our program because for him the very important conference is going on in Islamabad, which is the 5th Vice Chancellor Forum of the Islamic countries, and they are discussing very pertinent topics, especially relating to how the knowledge production in particular in the Muslim countries or the Muslim Ummah is being impacted, and what sort of steps are needed to take in order to modernize ourselves. And whenever we talk about the modernization, I always say we do not need to blindly follow the modernization of the Western countries. Rather, we need to modernize in the image of Islam.
That's very true.
Yes,
that's very true. You're very right. And of course, before we talk about the conference, I would like Dr. Salim to tell us about ICESCO, the Islamic World Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organizations. What's the scope of this organization? What does it do? And basically, of course, this conference is going on. What role is it playing here?
Thank you. In summary, the ICESCO is the UNESCO of the Islamic world. A few years ago, it was named as the Islamic Education, Scientific, Cultural Organization. We changed the name 3 years ago to be the Islamic World Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization. And the reason for changing the name is we cannot just corner the Islamic organization into just only the 54 member states.
Right.
Islam is everywhere. It's in China, it's in India, it's in Brazil, it's in Paris. That's in fact 50% of the Paris population are going to be Muslim by 2050, as based on the studies. Now, and this is the reason why we want to be open. Islam is a religion that is open, that is speaks about resilience, speaks about coexistence, speaks about science. The first word that comes to our Prophet was Iqra. Iqra means science. So this is one of the most important things that we're doing. We're 54 member state. It was established in 1982. It's based in Rabat as the headquarters. But we have a representation in different countries, and all our member states are from Muslim countries. We currently have some observers like Russia, Thailand, and we are going to have more observers in the coming few months. There have been a number of interested countries who want to join us as an observer, and I think that would open the door for more collaboration in the area of science, in the area of culture, in the area of education, and many others. Once again, that we collaborate through the National Commission of every country, and we have 5 strategic goals. But our vision is to be a beacon
Right.
of knowledge in basically science, culture, and education. We link, we collaborate, we discover, and we push a lot into empowering youth.
Yes.
And I would not say empowering women, but in fact we are giving women their position.
Right.
One of the things that we have done, that when I joined, there was only one woman in leadership position. Today we have 50% of our leadership positions are women. Again, youth is the future. And what we have done over the past 3 years, we really focus so much on youth. 27% of our workforce now are youth who are under the age of 30. They brought life, they brought wonder, and they brought initiative, and they look at the future that we cannot see, but we can see it in their eyes.
Yes, yes. So thank you so much for addressing that very wonderfully, and moving on to Professor Dr. Mukhtar Saab. So Mukhtar Saab, the theme of the conference is towards disruptive technology in a globalized world. And I remember that when I went to Istanbul on a conference on Islamophobia, and this was one of the points that I also raised there, which is about, so we see there's a lot of Islamophobic content on the social networking sites, Nauzubillah. And why don't the OIC countries sit together and dictate their terms of references to the Silicon Valley? Because we are 54, 57 Muslim countries, and I think that's a very capitalist world, and they do not want to lose such a huge market out there. Just on the same pattern as the European Union did that to the Silicon Valley, that these are the term of the references, and if you want to comply that in our country, then you are going to work, right? So do you believe on raising this point in the conference?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think this is a little bigger question than what we are talking.
Okay.
It is a country to country at a foreign office level policy issue. But my point is that whatever this you were talking about, Islamophobia and other things, we should fix our house. We should fix our institutions. Then there will be no issue. Just dictating doesn't work in the world nowadays. Dictation is not working. Of course, I know you can tell me that those big countries, giant countries, they can dictate whatever. There are other means that through which they can dictate. The reason we have organized this Vice Chancellor Forum, and this is the 5th one, and Alhamdulillah, we started in 2012 when I was in ICESCO with them as Deputy Director General, and this was the time when we organized the first Vice Chancellor Forum. The reason was to bring the academic head of the institution in different part of Islamic world and let them sit together and address those challenges they are facing, whether it is in education, whether it is in science and technology, or other life-related issues. So that we should go back to where we started earlier. We were leading in science, we were leading in technology, we were leading in education. But then we lost our path. We lost our way of direction which was given to us, as Excellency was telling that the first lesson came as Iqra. But we have not focused on Iqra, we have started doing something else. So the better, if we can just go and for the sake of argument, give more arguments, so nothing will happen. So let's first correct ourselves, and then we can be in better position to not dictate, but at least convince people automatically that we are not what they are posing.
Of course, you are right when you say that we need to put our house in the order, and I think that is the need of the hour. But now, Zubillah, when a very blasphemous sort of a content is coming from the Europe, for example, Charlie Hebdo is constantly publishing really off sort of a content out there. But I think that is also the need of the hour, because Muslims' sentiments are hurt, and we do not like to see that sort of a content out there, and all that in the name of free speech, right? And we know that's not a free speech, that is the hate speech. And I think we need to do something out there to curtail that tendency, very inflammatory tendency out there. So that is why, but having said so, I think it is said about the knowledge is the common heritage of the mankind. It doesn't belong to one particular civilization, it belongs to the entire humanity, right? So Dr. Salim, moving on to you, like you mentioned about how your organization is working, alhamdulillah, for that. So what are your main talking points in the conference, and what do you aspire to be after the conference is finished?
The conference gathered a number of almost like 300 universities from different countries in the Islamic world. And our knowledge is doubling almost 12 hours, every 12 hours. Now, for the 21st century university, it's not going to be the university that we used to know. It has to change. It has to cope with the challenges and with the changes that's happening in the world. We're no longer talking about the science that we know 20 years ago. We're talking about now GPT. We're talking about artificial intelligence. Even blockchain now is becoming old. So we really have to look into how we cope with those changes that are happening so quickly. Now, things that has been taught in 2020 will not be even good for the 2030. In fact, the students are changing, and they are not accepting that what we taught them. By the time they graduate, they are coming into an era, or they are coming to the workplace with totally different thoughts and ideas. So what you taught in schools or in university are changing. So what we try to say, that to be a 21st century university, you have to be innovative, and you really have to cope with the changes and change yourself with what's happening. Otherwise, if you don't address what's happening and what the student wants, you're going to produce or graduate students that are going to be unemployed, and that's not what we want.
Exactly, like you mentioned, innovation is the key these days, because we also see that there is a huge gap when it comes to the industry, when it comes to the educational institutions, just because of this fact that people and students are not being taught in the way that they want, perhaps, and in the way that the industry wants, perhaps. It's just the bookish knowledge, and perhaps now is the time that we have to get out of the bookish knowledge and be more practical and more pragmatic. So, as far as ICESCO is concerned, and we were talking about the Muslim countries, how they're far behind, right? Now is the time of robotics. Now is the time that we know that so many jobs that we see nowadays, they're going to be obsolete perhaps 10 years from now. So what role is the ICESCO playing in that regard? Because there are many skills which need to be taught. There are many skills which need to be instilled in people, perhaps who are in their middle ages, perhaps who are in their schools and colleges and universities. So what is the ICESCO, what role is ICESCO playing there?
Many reports came up, whether with the World Economic Forum or with McKinsey, and they're talking about really a lot of displacement of jobs. Like McKinsey came up with 400 to 800 million jobs are going to be not existing, and there are 375 million jobs. People need to change their careers. Even more than this, 85% of what was in 2020 are not going to be in 2030. So what
it actually sounds scary.
Yes, what we are doing at ICESCO is looking into the new jobs, or the jobs of tomorrow. And we have really done number of workshops, conferences, trying just to, and of course in collaboration with universities, in collaboration with institutions in our member states, trying to address the needs of the future, trying to address the importance of artificial intelligence, the robot revolutions, and all these issues that are coming. I'll just give you an example. Space science, for example. Space science industry, the expenditure today is close to $300 billion US. By 2040, it would reach to 2.5 to 3 trillion US dollars. When we looked into our member state, only 17 out of the 54 have invested in space. Now by 2040, if you have not invested in space science, you are going to be left behind. It's almost like it's the illiteracy of space science. So we're pushing so much to say that space science is important. Whoever controls the space is going to control the world. And by you can lighten Pakistan and neighboring countries, Afghanistan and Iran, just only by one satellite. You can really look into the environment, the climate change, the typhoons and what happens, so many things. from one side. Now, have we invested in this? Yes, Pakistan have invested. Yes, some other countries have invested, but surely that others have to invest in this. Now, take this into artificial intelligence. Now, the simple things is that children of today, there is no difference between a child who's 6 years old or 10 years old, whether he's in Pakistan or he's in the United States or Brazil or anywhere. You give them an iPad, and 1 or 2 days, they would know everything about the iPad.
That's true. That's true.
So, what yesterday I mentioned in my introductory speech is that our grandparents have changed the world when it comes to science and technology, and they have so many discoveries. The genes are still in our children. All what we need to do is just to nourish these genes, and I can assure you that the civilization of the Muslim Ummah will come back, and it will come.
And we need to channelize their energies in the right direction. Now, Professor Dr. Mukhtar Sahab, now we know that whatever he said, that's totally true, and some of the facts are even scary. Now, being the chairman of the Higher Education Commission, what does the Pakistani government need to do, talking specifically about Pakistan and some of the Islamic countries, of course, being a third world country, being, sort of making efforts in order to raise the children, raise the next generations. But we do see that I think more and more support needs to be given by the government, the institutions, to the HEC, perhaps for making opportunities for more scholarships and opening more avenues for the students. So what do you think, and on being on the state television, what message would you like to give to the government? Because I'm sure many of the government personnel would be listening to you right now. So what suggestions do you have?
Thank you. Starting from your previous point, that the scary information that jobs are going to be finished,
Yes.
they are scary if we will not act. If we will act, they are not scary, there are opportunity there. Basically, the initial point you were making that there is a gap between the skill set of the people who are graduating from universities and what industry is asking. That is the big issue. If we can address those things, things will be okay. And even those changing environment, as Dr. Malik said also, that we need to train our human resource. Jobs are not going to finish. The role of individuals are going to change. And accordingly, institution requirement and government requirement is to give them, give them the ecosystem, give them the environment, give them the booster, those kind of courses, so that they should be ready for take the next challenge in different environment and different climate. As far as the Pakistan is concerned, in the last 20 years, you have seen that government in difficult time even, they have kept the focus and they are contributing, they are providing resources to our higher education institution. And of course, public sector and private sector, both they are coming up. The point is that our academia, our researcher, our universities, they need to be understanding the challenges. This excellency was right that now the knowledge is changing every 24 hours.
True.
Next day you will find something different.
That's true.
So we have to be very alert and very efficient to think before that is happening, so that we should be also ready to respond. And the government is, of course, the responsibility of government is also there. The state is there, that they need to keep on giving priority to education and particularly higher education, because this holistic approach of we cannot only send money to at one sector and the remaining. It needs from basic, primary school, high school, college level, then of course technical education, and need to be a holistic approach that people should start going for innovation, for creation of knowledge. Our youth, mashallah, in Pakistan, which is more than 60%, they are not less than anybody. You know that recent European Erasmus Plus examination, the country who won the maximum scholarship was Pakistan.
Wonderful.
And I'm more happy because India was number 2. So having 10 times bigger population, and then this means that we have the potential, and Excellency is right that we have those genes. The expression of gene is depending on environment.
Yes.
The state responsibility, the government responsibility is to create that ecosystem, that environment, where expression of those genes should start again paying back and they should be coming forward. So that is my message to the government, that we have to take give priority to education. And I always say there are a few sectors we need to be determined that these are the first priority things: education, health, food security, and of course now the climate change.
Yes.
So these are the four things we need to focus on them and give the priority there. Whatever resources available, we have to be serious about these areas. And at my end, at HEC and university level, we need to be responsible enough to give the response, and we should be in front row. That is I think the ecosystem we need to create.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for so brilliantly putting it out. Moving on to Dr. Salim Saab, and I want to build on the conversation, because we were having this conversation before our show went on air, and this was about, there was a very interesting development regarding the agreement between the Iran and Saudi Arabia, and one of the points that I find really interesting in that agreement was that they decided not to use English, because English is the lingua franca, the global language, but rather they wanted to do that sort of agreement in Persian or Arabic. And I think that's very interesting, because most of the knowledge that Muslims have produced back in the golden days, you will find it's either in the Arabic or in the Persian, and there's a treasure trove of the literature on which this region is sitting on, but unfortunately we cannot learn that because we do not understand that. So there's a disconnect between the languages. So what exactly is your organization doing to, join the bridges in terms of that disconnect, and what do you think about this language thing?
Well, I think teaching in your own language
Yes,
is a big win.
that's true.
Teaching in a different language is definitely a big loss. In medicine, for example, if you teach in your own language, there will be a lot of innovation discoveries, because it will be much easier for you to think, to analyze, and then come up with thoughts and ideas that you think is appropriate. Now, during the colonization, one of the most important area that whether the British or the French have done is to change the languages.
That's true.
And I think the reason why is that they want to build
Yes.
the capacity that we have in our people and the brains is to translate it into, so that everything comes into their language, not in our language. And I think that is one of the drawback. Now, if you take, for example, Ibn Sina,
Yes.
Al-Qanun fi al-Tibb, which was translated into more than 30 or 40 languages. It was taught for 500 years
Yes.
in the European university, most of the European universities.
Yes.
Now, imagine that we have continued in the Arabic language or the Persian language or your language. I think there will be a lot of things discoveries that we have not seen.
That's true.
So we're limiting ourselves
Yes.
by thinking that if I don't study math or science or medicine, if it's not in English, I'm not going to succeed. That's
true.
totally untrue. So I think teaching in the language, and I'm very happy to hear that this is what comes up of this agreement, that
Yes.
broadcasting everything in either in Arabic or Persian. I think
Yes.
this is very pleasing to every one of us.
Yes.
But once again, I want to focus that in science, even artificial intelligence, even medicine, even you name it, in space science,
Yes.
if we just go to our own languages, I think we will be way better
Yes.
than using the English, the French, the
Yes.
Spanish or other languages.
Yes. So thank you so much for so brilliantly putting it out, and I think we Muslims have a very rich historical and a heritage in terms of the literature, in terms of the philosophy, in terms of the science. Thank you so much, Mukhtar Saab. Thank you so much, Dr. Saleh, for coming here.